Minnie, my dear old patient, was in the downstairs bedroom. "Ach, nurse, you'll be wet, and so busy you are, and me here needin' a bath." I usually got her up in the mornings to sit by the fire, but today was bed bath day. "I'm sorry to be so late, Minnie." "Ach, I'm no mindin'. I have my wireless." Minnie was almost completely paralyzed as the result of a stroke some years previously, but she never complained. Over time, we became much more than nurse and patient, and when she died, I felt that I had lost a friend. On this December day, we laughed and chatted as I worked, and after a while I heard Andrew's arrival. The timid knock and shy hello were followed by much motherly tutting over his wet things. Marianne loved children, and, like so many island women, was never happier than when fussing over them with Coco and Clootie Dumpling. So Andrew was only too happy to accompany me on my rounds when necessary. The patients and their relatives plied him with all manner of goodies. I believe they thought that I didn't feed him very well. I was English, and the islanders had little regard for fancy English food. Good old-fashioned stodge was what kept them full for generations. Nicholas, my 12-year-old, a much sturdier boy, had been about to start at the senior school a year ago, just as we left the bustle of life in the south for the peace and tranquility of Papavray. So, instead, he now attended the grammar school that served several islands and the area of mainland where it was situated. 60 miles by road, and as many more by ferry, meant that he and 2 others from our remote village had to stay in the school hostel, or in digs, from Monday to Friday of each week. At first, he hated this, but settled eventually, never becoming a good scholar, but using his personality to get him by. He was very popular with old and young alike, and as a tall lad with a cheerful grin, he did not want for girlfriends, even at the tender age of 12. Nicholas and Andrew were 5 years apart, but were great friends. Every weekend would see them fishing or boating or roaming far and wide. They helped the shepherds with the shearing, watched calves being born, or just sat at various firesides listening to crofters' tales. It was a very different childhood from that which they would have known in the South. Our 2 older children were not with us on the island, having left home before we moved. Elizabeth was in college in London, while John had left another college after a term, having decided that the academic life was not for him. He had a job of sorts and lived with a group of friends in the capital. My husband, George, had been completing an overseas contract, but when he finally came to live in Dubaig, our village, he became a sort of jack of all things electrical for the island. We were afforded much amusement by the crofters' plaintive requests for George to breathe new life into various dying devices. Electricity had only come to the islands in 1950, and many remote glens still had none, so most of the crofters' electrical possessions had been purchased in the first excitement, and 20 years later they still expected them all to work perfectly. How often were we told, "This was a good kettle." Interestingly, many of the croft houses had electrical irons, kettles, and so on, but still no indoor toilet. I knew of 2 that had no toilet at all. During one summer, I gained intimate knowledge of this deficiency as a result of too many cups of tea.